Detroit riots and white flight. Before the riots started, Detroit was a thriving industrial center in the United States. People moved to Detroit from all over in the hopes of achieving the American dream, emphasized through the booming industrial factories throughout the city. As quoted by PBS NewsHour, Professor Boyle of Ohio State University says that in Detroit's glory years, from 1910 to 1950, the city was a boom town, equal to any of the gold rush towns of the American West. Henry Ford had revolutionized the automobile industry through the assembly line, and many people tried to move to the city to catch it on the bustling industry throughout the early 1900s. In the novel, Lefty and Desdemona moved from their home in Europe to Detroit in order to escape war and start a completely new life in America.
In the summer of 1967, racial tensions within Detroit were rising. The economic disparity was more evident than ever, and police brutality was at an all-time high. Each night, the police would target underground black drinking clubs for raids, and in the early hours of Sunday, July 23rd, the police executed one of these raids and stumbled upon 82 members of the black community celebrating the return of 2 GIs from Vietnam. They arrested everyone. While waiting for paddy wagons to show up, a crowd began to form. The crowd grew violent when one member threw a bottle at the police officers. The crowd then began pelting cars with stones. After this, large-scale looting and destruction began. People were burning down buildings and stealing things left and right. To quote the novel, men were playing instruments taken from the music store. Other men were handing whiskey bottles through shattered windows. The riots went on through Monday, and the fires and violence continued to consume the city. The police were incredibly ill-equipped to deal with such a large-scale riot. Late Monday night, the use of federal troops was finally approved of by President Lyndon Johnson. This resulted in the deployment of 12,000 federal troops early Tuesday morning. Initially, the violence escalated with the deployment because most of the National Guardsmen were white, but they were able to get the riot under control within 48 hours. By Friday, the federal troops had begun to withdraw, and on Saturday, all the troops were withdrawn from the city. Throughout the week, over 40 people died, over 7,000 were arrested, and there was an estimated $40 million lost from destruction and looting.
The white flight is the movement of the white population from the city of Detroit to the suburbs due to the 1967 Detroit race riots. The mayor of Detroit at the time, Mayor Coleman Young, stated that the heaviest casualty, however, was the city. Members of the city began to become overcome with fear and racial prejudice. Because of these emotions, during this time period, the white population sold or abandoned their homes in racially diverse neighborhoods within the city. The white population fled to the suburbs, and the population of the city shifted. Not only did the population begin to decline, but the racial makeup of the city transformed from a white majority to a black majority by the 1980s census. The economy began to decline as a wealthier population left the city, causing a decrease in the tax base.
The novel Middlesex follows the story of 3 generations of a family throughout a variety of different time periods, including the Detroit riot and white flight. Milton, the narrator's father, is the first generation of the Stephanides family to be born in the United States. Fitting with the time period of racial segregation and the resulting unrest, Milton is incredibly racist towards black people and those that he views as abnormal. He tells Callie to stay away from a black man simply because of the color of his skin, and Milton only claims that black people could be accepted if they fit the standards of what he believes to be normal. The irony of this is that when Milton's parents, Lefty and Desdemona, first immigrated into the country, they were considered the minority and were believed to be inferior. Lefty was forced into an English class and had his home invaded to make sure that he was Americanized. But now his son is the one who feels superior to others, especially to black people. Milton carries a strong hatred for them because he views them as abnormal and dangerous. Further making the situation ironic, others still view Milton as an undesirable and are wary of him because of his immigrant background. This is clear when the realtor tries to prevent him from purchasing a suburban home because in her mind, the family is not the right sort of people.
People in the novel react harshly when encountering people with different cultural traditions and norms. To what extent do these reactions still exist today? How do the riots reflect changes in the Stephanides family's relationships with one another? How do generational differences affect various racial interactions between different characters in the novel?